Hi everyone. This is me, Mulham, and Aline, our CEO. We are from NaTakallam. I think Aline will start with introducing NaTakallam to everyone and what we do.
Thank you, Mulham. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Wasn't sure on the start. So thanks, Mulham, for the intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Aline, and I'm calling from Paris. I wish I could be there to join you, but I am 8 months pregnant, so I can't move so easily. I don't know if any of you speak Arabic in the room, but to start with, NaTakallam means we speak. And we're a small social enterprise that leverages the digital economy to provide income opportunities to refugees and conflict-affected communities by hiring them as online tutors, teachers, and translators. My background has been in journalism and human rights and was heavily tied to coming up with the idea to create NaTakallam, and it dates back to 2015 at the height of the Syrian civil war, all the way in Lebanon. And over 1 million Syrians had come to Lebanon fleeing the violence back home. But for many refugees around the world, and for Syrians in Lebanon or Syrians in Jordan or other neighboring countries, you might be able to flee the bombings and the torture and the crackdown back home. But when you get to a new country that is right on the other side of the border, you are faced with a life in total limbo. Most countries that receive refugees do not give them a right to stay, a right to work, and effectively rob them from a future. And yet, for example, a Syrian to leave Lebanon, where they're absolutely typically not welcome, and to get resettled in a formal way to countries in Europe, Australia, or the US through formal UN channels and resettlement channels, the chance is actually less than 1%. And so that's why back in 2015, we saw this huge migration wave through the Mediterranean. And that's also at that time that this photo of this 2-year-old Syrian boy washed up on the shores of Turkey went viral to reflect the hardship and the harrowing choices left for refugees who are fleeing conflict, persecution, and war in general. So today, when I launched NaTakallam, there was about 60 million people who were forcibly displaced in the world. Today, that number has almost doubled. We've hit a horrible number, 110 million people who are forced to flee their homes. And this is only due to war and persecution. If we add in climate, which is a big topic during this festival, we're actually seeing more, almost a doubling. And just to give an example, in 2022, which saw a new war, namely Russia's invasion of Ukraine, despite this war, more people were displaced by climate crises than by war. So it is absolutely critical to think of ways to support the displaced. So going back to the start of NaTakallam, I was looking for ways to practice Arabic while I was in New York City. I had just finished my master's, and I had always dreamed of going to Syria to study Arabic and immerse myself in the language there. Even though I'm Lebanese, I grew up in the US, and in Lebanon, people speak French and English and Arabic, so it's not ideal. And so I realized that Syrians were fleeing, and I couldn't go to Syria, but that because today, unlike World War II, which saw the other largest refugee crisis, today we live in the era of the World Wide Web, and that has actually opened up fundamentally important ways of survival for the displaced. So it hit me that while I can't go to Syria, Syrians can come to me virtually, and they could be my tutor. And that is what planted the idea for what later became NaTakallam. So NaTakallam operates on 3 main tenets: the fact that there's millions of highly educated, forcibly displaced people around the world who are looking to work, that we are also seeing a boom in global interest in all types of language, translation, and cultural exchange services as the world is increasingly globalizing. And of course, the booming digital economy that has been amplified through COVID times. And while many of us have heard the concept of digital nomadism, taking your laptop and working from Bali or from a nice sunny destination. Refugees are forced digital nomads, and we believe that they must be integrated into society, into the economy, and that this digital economy and this digital space is a way to do so. So we started with Arabic, and today NaTakallam is offered in a number of languages. So we added Arabic taught by many refugees of the region, including Iraqis, Yemeni, Palestinians, and many thoughts with Palestinian people today with what's going on. We then added Persian with Iranian and Afghan refugees, followed by Spanish with Venezuelan and Central American refugees, French taught by Francophone African refugees, and most recently Ukrainian and Russian taught by Ukrainian and self-exiled Russian dissidents. So after doing the first concept of one-on-one tutoring, we also realized there was an opportunity to bring our programs to school and to go beyond language learning, but really cultural exchange, raising awareness around the refugee cause. So we do bring our programs to schools and universities around the world. We've seen, for example, especially in the US, learners as young as 4, 5, 6, who are interacting through the screen with a Syrian refugee in Iraq or a Venezuelan refugee in Costa Rica, helping to very often counter the very negative narrative we're hearing in the news and through very often our populist leaders. And we also have added another service, which is translation and interpretation, because we realized this was also a way for people who have strong language skills, who, no matter where they are in the world, to offer services. And so rather than being passive recipients to aid, what NaTakallam does, it gives a way for displaced people to earn their own revenue. And in total, over the years, our tutors and translators have earned over $3.2 million in self-generated revenue. And I would say that the more important and more powerful impact of our work is, a restored sense of purpose for these individuals, because so much of being displaced is defined by just being in waiting for papers, waiting for a border to open, waiting to get accepted to a new country. It also has fostered so many transnational friendships and more. But rather than talk about this myself, I'm very happy to have Mulham on stage. Mulham is originally from Syria. He started with NaTakallam as an Arabic tutor and is now part of our core team as our product owner. So Mulham, let's hear from you. If you could tell us about, what was the war like in Syria and how you left and why you left and how you ended up living where you are today, which is in France. So to you, Mulham.
Thanks, Aline. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm introducing myself again. I'm Mulham. I'm from Syria. I did leave Syria in 2015 to Turkey. I would like to go through the situation in Syria a bit, the context of how life was or living in Syria was in those years. I think that's important because it's not a story about Syria. It's a story about any place under war that's going through wars, whether it's Ukraine or any other place in the world right now or before. So me, as someone who was in Syria, I was a student living life normally, and then there was the conflict that started in Syria. I don't want to go into details in the conflict itself, but I had to basically try and survive being under constant bombing while actually going to my universities, doing my classes at the same time, and having people possibly assaulting us in the university. When I would go to sleep, I am never sure that I'll wake up the next day because there's always bombardment. I would say I was kind of privileged. I'm from Aleppo. Not because I'm from Aleppo, I'm privileged, but because I was in a kind of secure or safer arrondissement or safer quarter, neighborhood of Aleppo. Sorry, it's the French. But many of my other friends, where we had only 1 to 2 bombs per week, so that was the kind of safe scenario. But like many of my other friends had actually to be displaced and to move to either to leave Syria altogether with their family, or actually they had that extreme motivation to actually go on with their studies with me in the engineering school at the same time as they are leaving their house. So some of them came and stayed with me in my place because I used to live in my own house. And they did continue their studies, some of them. And then in 2015, so that's how life was. Basically, you are never safe. There's no future perspective. And yeah, you are basically never sure about what's going to happen next, whether you'll be alive or not. That's how it would be like, the shorter version of it. So in 2015, I was under another dilemma because I finished my studies. And once you finish your study in Syria, you have basically two options. You'd have, as a young male, I was 25 years old back then, or 26, maybe 25, I think. I had to join the fight and either be conscribed by the military army, forced to be enlisted, and fight with the army to kill other Syrians, obviously, because it's a civil war. At this stage, I think everyone recognized it was a civil war. Or be joining the other group, which is doing the uprising and basically fight against the military army and also be killing another Syrians on the other side. For me, the way that I saw things, it was a proxy war. I think many other people would see it this way. In the region, it was a conflict that was fought by Syrian bloods, paid by regional actors. For me, I mean, at that stage in 2015, it was like, for me, it was like that at least. I had no interest in joining any force. But morally speaking, I'm against war in general. So I've just decided to quit Syria. Leaving Syria is, for me, it was like smoother than other people, but usually it is a very hazardous and dangerous trip to leave Syria as well. So yeah, I've decided to leave Syria in 2015 to avoid being part of this conflict altogether.
Mulham, thank you. So to kind of simplify, so many men in Syria would flee because they'd be forced to kill their own fellow citizens and forced to fight on one of the sides. And so you had to flee. It was a very difficult journey fleeing. And you eventually made it to France. When did you encounter NaTakallam, and when did you start, and what to you can you share about the value this brought you and how it impacts and supports refugees?
Yeah, so after I've left Syria, I've reached Turkey, and then I've joined NaTakallam as a language partner. I got the chance to actually earn some income while also like teaching my language, which is Arabic. And the most important part of NaTakallam back then for me was it generated income for me, but also it generated relations because I could like talk with many people who were, I would say, on the left side, like more welcoming to refugees. So it was like a really nice way to actually be introduced also to students who are interested in learning Arabic, but also are actually interested in my culture. And obviously, I have always been interested in other cultures, so that was like really like the best of both worlds. So NaTakallam allowed me basically, for me as a language partner, earn income, have new relationships and friends, get to know them. And for the students themselves, I think it enabled them to basically get more contextual information about what's happening on the ground and learn the language at the same time. When I've left, about like my journey of leaving to Turkey and to France, also, again, it is not representative of the usual journey. And I think there's no normal or usual journey. That's why I'm here. But mine was a bit smoother than average. Like I went to Turkey with in a car. It was a risky journey where I had to cross many checkpoints during 12 hours. Once I was in Turkey, I was lucky to have my brother supporting me and apply for many universities and then apply for a visa and be accepted in France and starting my study there. I always wanted to study a master, so that was like my basically ticket to go and do that. And yeah, I mean, NaTakallam really also, when I came to France, NaTakallam really helped me in also like being, feeling welcomed in France, because I had to talk with so many people. Again, it was online, but they were like very accepting to refugees. So I think that like even when I was in France, NaTakallam was like a crucial part of my life there in France. I could share my stories about like how it feels to be displaced, while I'm also like obviously sharing the language, which is the Arabic that I'm speaking with my students. So
thank you, Mulham. We're running out of time. I'm getting a notice from the organizers, but I just wanted to wrap up and tell everyone that please find Mulham if you want to talk to him, and him and our colleague will be handing out vouchers for all attendees of the festival if you want to try NaTakallam. And one last note, we'll finish on Mulham. If there's one thing the world could know about refugees, and maybe particularly Syrian refugees, what would it be?
Yeah, that would be easy. War is never far away from any one of us. When I was in Syria before 2011, I never thought like I will be in war. I was hearing those stories from Iraq, before that from Afghanistan when I was a kid. Yeah, like it feels so much remote. It felt like, yeah, the war is there, like it's so far away. I would say, yeah, never be sure about that. Like being safe is really like the most important things that we never appreciate. And war is never far away from anyone. I'm not trying to be gloomy, but if you check the history, if you look at the history, if you look about the current geopolitical updates or things that are happening on the geopolitical level, yeah, it's like we should be accepting other people, because being on displacement is a human experience, I feel, if we check the history. If you take a look at the history. So that's the most important thing. I would say it's not about Syria only, it's about like the human experience, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you, Mulham. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.